Nah, you're getting the camera frame. So I was like, ah. Today we're talking about the subject of health.
Ooh, and wellness.
As a business owner, which I feel like sometimes they go together, and then a lot of times they don't. And how it relates to the business owner especially.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's two images when it comes to a business owner and their health. It's like the rock star who also is like a part-time athlete.
Right.
And then there's the person who's like majillion pounds overweight because they're just working all the time and they die of a heart attack because of stress.
Sounds terrible. Yeah, shockingly accurate.
Right? So there's always like these two images. And I feel like entrepreneurs are starting to shift more towards the athletic side of things because it's really out there now. But I still feel like it's hard for business owners to really find balance with not only health, relationships, and business, especially when you're starting.
Absolutely.
Or scaling. But I don't know. Personally, I've had issues with that, but my priority is not to work out.
Right.
My priority is to do other things.
To work.
It's to work. I enjoy it so much when I'm doing something I like. And so the fitness side of things tends to kind of go out the window.
Yeah.
I did not have that problem before I started my business.
Interesting. Was it because when you're working for someone else, you have set work hours typically? And you're able to schedule things around that. But when you're working for yourself, it's kind of all the time. And it makes it, even though you would think it's easier to schedule in personal time, it's almost harder because there's no set schedule of things to work around.
I think that's a good point. Setting boundaries around your schedule. I'm pretty good about that.
Have you
then
always
I'm
been,
like,
Have you always been good at that?
I'm usually pretty good at my schedule. I've actually been very good at that since the beginning of time. But,
since forever. Okay.
I've been very punctual, as you may know.
Yeah.
I'm usually very punctual and I'm on time.
Speaking of middle school, were you the middle schooler that used your planner that they forced us all to buy? Do you remember that?
Didn't go to middle school, so I didn't have a planner. I had tasks I had to do that day.
Okay.
And I could do them whenever I wanted because literally my whole day was school until kids got out of school.
That's right.
But I would be done with school within 4 hours because I didn't have to deal with other students.
In middle school and high school, they would force us to like buy a planner for $5 or whatever.
I've heard of that.
And then they would try and force us to like write things in it. I was always so bad at that.
Yeah.
I would like lose it after the first week.
You still do that.
An ADHD kid. Yeah. But I've gotten better. Like I have different systems in place to like really.
Especially now that everything's digital, it's helpful.
It is more helpful. I've been avoidant of the digital world though until 2020 anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had a flip phone until about then.
Yeah, and my big old planner. I had a big old leather bound planner I was using.
Oh. Yeah. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. That's why I would always carry that with my bag, flip phone, and my tablet.
But it wouldn't work well?
It worked great. It's just when everything went to Zoom calls and everyone did everything online, having the tablet separate from my actual phone because people would message me or text me or like Snapchat me or whatever 20 different messaging apps there were.
Yeah.
I needed it all in one place.
But you seem to have a different story because I feel like you do. And unless it's last year because 2020, let's just like keep that out of the picture. But consistently, it seems like you've balanced work with health.
I've done okay, but as my work ramps up, my health definitely suffers by a lot. So, but for me, what I've always done is I have a goal. I'm not going to work out just to work out. I have to be training for something. So that's why I do my adventure races. So I love Tough Mudders, Spartan races, Rugged Maniac.
Not just for the swag.
I mean, the swag really helps, honestly. Which I'm not wearing one today. But like, 90% of my t-shirts are the ones that I've earned from one of the races or something.
For that.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think Tough Mudder Spartan race, they're 10, 12 miles of running on a mountain with obstacles. So in order to, even get them done, I have to train.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I set the date, I get the ticket, I make a whole event out of it. So I take the weekend off. I volunteer for one day and then I get to run for free. So it's usually 2 or 3 days that I'm out in the mountains and then just hang out and have fun. Right.
Yeah.
So because I have that target, I have a training schedule that I get to get there, which I work around my work schedule.
Mm.
But in 2019, it was the first year I actually I didn't do any races. And then I was like, it's fine, I'll do it in 2020.
Womp womp.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But without having that goal, I'm not just like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym today and do arms and legs.
Right.
Which I used to, actually. Well, actually. Because in college, I was fighting MMA.
Right.
So I was training for that. In high school, I was playing sports. So like
but there's a purpose to the working out. It's to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then college taught MMA. Then after that, I got into parkour and free running. So I'd have that's when I started paying for expensive classes.
Mm.
So I would go to the class and I would have to train to do whatever skill.
Right.
And then I got into acro yoga. So I would have to train to do whatever skill.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about going to the gym and bulking up.
Yeah.
Getting my guns.
There's more, not necessarily a practical side of things, but there's another reason to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That tends to be more my MO when it comes to working out. If I'm working out, it's to play great volleyball, which I still play volleyball every now and then. Now not, but I used to. I would go to this place in Denver where they had just had volleyball open night, and you just go and play with whoever. And you'd be surprised how many rock stars there are out there living in Denver, just walking the street, walking right by you, and you had no idea. They're just like this volleyball rock star until, yeah. So I would do a lot of that, and I've done a lot of hiking and snowboarding, and I usually would prep my workouts and everything for snowboarding. Yeah. But I haven't snowboarded it's now been 2 years because I took a year off, and then 2020 happened. So I was like, well, I'm not going to do that.
It was definitely there was a lot in 2019. Let's I'll just take a break from this for a year and get back to it next year.
Yeah. Well,
thanks, world.
Don't wait, people. And I was thinking about doing a mud runner or something like that in 2020, but obviously that didn't work out. I'm hoping maybe in 2022 we could probably have a proper kind of race, because I've never done that one of those and I always wanted to.
They're so fun.
Right. But yeah, for me, it's always kind of having a purpose to something. Yeah. But when you're a business owner, you don't tend to be part of the volleyball club anymore. You don't tend to be part of the parkour group anymore.
Right.
And so it's the priority is get the business running or keep the business running, or, oh my God, I don't want to die and be on fire. And so got to keep working.
What do I do to make sure rent is paid?
Yeah.
Because I'm working for myself.
That or other goals like buying a boat. Which I'm currently in right now. So yeah, it's interesting balance, because movement and health helps you get those things.
Yeah.
But it's one of the first things, especially here in America, that people drop because of other perceived priorities.
Absolutely.
Myself included.
It's interesting because Tony Robbins actually talks about this a lot. And that's probably one of the first things that he says is that in order to have a healthy quality of life, in order to have the energy to focus on your business, to have the energy to focus on your partner, to have a good, healthy, love relationship, physical fitness has to happen.
Right.
And you're right, it's probably often the first thing that we give up. Why do you think that is?
Lazy. I think it's the buildup, right? Okay. I have a full day of all of these things, and so I don't want to expel energy on this because I'm so focused on that.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm coming from. And my brain does that because it's probably self-sabotaging me. But it's no, we want you to lose and stay small, therefore you will not work out, so you don't perform as well, or etc. Yeah. But it was interesting because in 2019, trying to keep track of the years here, 2019, I joined a coaching program, and it was part business and it was part movement. So it was all about bowspring yoga paired with really getting into your body and stop being in your fear and making stuff happen. When we were doing, it was interesting because it was business coaching, but it was also yoga practice.
Yeah.
Every week it was one or the other.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see how I changed because I was actively doing bowspring yoga. Now, bowspring yoga, for those of you who don't know, which many, like most people don't, it is obviously yoga, but it's very curvy and bouncy, where traditional yoga is very stern and straight.
Okay.
And so you're moving more like a cat than you are like a stick figure.
Okay.
So it's surprisingly incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from that, and my posture was better, still is better. I do it every now and then. And it really changed not only my life, but my business.
Okay.
And so I've actually lived through this, where movement helped me make more money.
Yeah.
Yet it is still the first thing I get rid of when I'm just like, I don't want to. Okay. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we do live, 2020 was hard, honestly. It really normalized not working out, It
True.
made it very socially acceptable.
Made it okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, because, gyms were closed. We didn't want to do anything. I still actually can't go to a gym because they just there's so much, one, you have to have a mask on, and there's just so much chemical in the air because they're constantly spraying everything down.
That, and every week it seems to be changing rules. And
yeah.
I paused mine because I was like, I went 3 times, and every time, one time I wasn't even able to get in.
Yeah.
Because they're at capacity, and I was like, but I reserved my time. And they're like, sorry. And I was like, what am I paying this for? So I stopped that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, so I think it's just more normalized to not work out, and it's okay. I also find people, like friends and family, who don't work out have that same effect, where when you're trying to start a business, that kind of thing, they're like, hey, you don't need to do that. When it's like, hey, I'm going to go do this 2-hour workout, your friends and family, often my friends and family are like, why do you need to work out so hard? You don't need to do that. I love you just the way you are.
Yeah, enablement to be lazy.
Yeah.
Well, and we've talked about this before, where working out is important, but using it as a scapegoat, or using it as like a way to avoid problems, like going to the gym for 2 to 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
If you're not a bodybuilder, if you're not going for a mud runner or fitness competition of some kind, probably not where you should spend 3 hours of your time, maybe an hour, right? And use it with high quality.
Especially if you have kids and you have a relationship and you're running a business.
Like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
See, and it's interesting because you go to places outside of the United States. The United States is such a car culture because of how development around the country has been built. We don't have great public transportation, and the car was cheap.
Especially in Colorado.
Yeah, especially forget it.
Yeah.
If you don't have a car in Colorado, or a bike, like a high-speed bike, I don't know how you're doing it. Yeah. I really don't.
Unless you live in downtown Denver.
And you never leave.
Yeah.
What?
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and so it's like, but if you go to other places around the world, they usually are walking so much more than us. They're getting more social than we are, because we're basically going from the house to a half an hour to an hour drive in the car, to the work, to your little cubicle, and you're coming back into the car.
Right.
You're not really getting around a lot of people.
Yeah.
And over in other countries, you're just around people all the time because they tend to be a little bit more condensed, I feel like.
Yeah.
But you're walking a lot. Every time I travel, I always lose weight because I'm always walking, and I'm just doing what everybody else does. I'm walking to the tram, or I'm walking to the park, or whatever it is. And you just be surprised with how much energy you expunge just from walking. But we don't do walking here.
Yeah.
I remember I had an exchange student when I was in Grand Junction. I knew an exchange student from Germany. And he lived out in the country, but he was a big runner, and he did a running team with his German high school. And he was staying with an American family in Grand Junction, Colorado. It's the western side, basically Utah. And he was staying at a person's house that was legit a mile away from the grocery store.
Yeah.
Who's walking a mile to go to the grocery store for a couple items?
No.
We're driving.
Yeah.
And so, they got popped into the car, and they went to the grocery store, and he was like, why didn't we just walk?
Oh.
And everyone just looked at him like, it's a mile. And he's like, yeah. Like, people walk 2 miles to the grocery store and back. Like, it's not uncommon. And I found this also interesting. Sorry, I'm going to kind of take over for a minute. But I was watching a React video, of course, because I love those things. This British kid watching about transportation in America. And it actually is why I know some of this stuff.
Okay.
American zoning with building like communities is rather new. And so what they did is they made like residential zones compared to commercial zones.
Correct.
So you don't have a lot of blending between the two. So you don't drive down a suburban street and then all of a sudden see a gas station.
Right.
You have to go to like an actual like commercial area, and there's going to be other stores and things around, and not a lot of homes, right?
Right.
That's kind of changing now. But in Europe, everything's mixed. So you literally walk down the street and there's a pub. You walk down the street, there's a convenience store. You know, it's very interesting how we've built up America mostly in that way. So you have to have a car in order to go to these places.
But I mean, Europe was built forever ago.
Exactly. So I'm saying we didn't model well with them, unless you go to New York, DC, or Philadelphia, which are modeled off of European cities.
Okay, yeah, I did hear an NPR story about that because in New York, because everything is there's so much there. There's no like big Walmart. So all they have is on the corner. Each corner is like a little grocery store. That you get your whatever.
You literally don't have to go outside of 2 blocks in New York City, and you will have everything you need.
Yeah, that's so different, actually.
Right? Because in Colorado, it's very wide open spaces, you know.
Yeah, and so we have to drive, like we're here in the business district. There's not, it's at least a mile away is the nearest grocery store. And that's a Whole Foods.
It's about 2.5 miles away.
Yeah, and then it's another 2 miles to King Soopers.
Yep.
So.
Like, I cannot imagine walking from King Soopers, where I actually was just at before here, grabbing my bagel, and then come here to do a podcast. Like, no, unless I have a bike. Sure, but yeah. So think about that, and then you think about our activity levels. Like, we're not farming. Not all of us are farming. Not all of us are ranching anymore. Like, we're not all mining. So what are we doing with our bodies?
Well, we wake up, check our email.
In bed, on our phones. And that's what I do. I'm like, I'm not leaving bed yet.
Go to the kitchen table, eat some food, go get in the car.
Or the living room. Yeah.
Drive to work, sit at our desk, work all day, get in the car, drive home, or go to the bar, meet some friends, sit and eat. There's not a lot of walking in our everyday life.
There is not. And that's starting to change as we start to build stores on the first floor of apartment buildings and then apartments on top. That's becoming a more new thing now. And so I'm really excited about that. But for someone who grew up in the mountains, like I grew up in a small town. Thankfully, I could walk to areas to get things.
Yeah.
But I could not walk to a movie theater because that was 45-minute drive. Right. I could not, like there's lots of limitations with that. So you legit had to have a car because there's no bus coming into town.
Right.
And that's another thing is public transportation. It's like if I wanted to go do things, I literally have to have a car.
Yeah.
I can't take a bus most places, and the train, forget it.
Right.
Not doing it. So I feel like that's a big piece as to why we tend to be a little bit lazier is because we're conditioned based off of our zoning.
Okay.
And how we've just kind of approached work in general.
Can I give some tips?
Yeah, this is an open discussion.
I have some favorite tips of mine that I've adopted. So one thing that I prefer to do, and every girl I date hates it, but I park far away.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
I'll park in the back of every parking lot. Everyone like in the car with me gets so mad.
I get it. I don't do that all the time, but I do it.
Now it's just habit. I started it back in college, and I've never stopped.
Right.
As often as possible, I always take the stairs, just because one, I hate being on elevators for whatever reason, and it's just faster to go up and down the stairs than it is to go hit the button, stand there and wait. Especially
if it's like one level.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
It's like I can just take the stairs and not. Yeah. So those are probably my two biggest things, and then. For fun, I will, like if I'm going to go to the liquor store, there's generally, I think liquor stores are the one thing that's near populated areas.
Oh, yeah.
Grocery stores, not. Yeah. So I'll always walk to the liquor store, and then I feel like that's the reward. I'm going to have some drinks, and then I'll take that home. Yeah. And then it's like a fun thing to do if I have a friend over. It's like, hey, why don't we just go walk to the store? We can grab what we want and then come walk back.
That is nice. Yeah, that is nice. I think where I live, I'm like, there's just a come and go and a car wash. And then there's like 3 miles away, there's a Home Depot.
Is the big liquor store, is that within walking distance?
No, that's like, well,
Like
in
5
American
miles?
standards, that's probably like a good 3 to 4 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no way. I mean, I could bike again.
You could bike,
in college, I biked all the time because I didn't have a car until I was 21.
Yeah.
That I could really use, that is. So I didn't, in Grand Junction, okay, for those of you who don't know, it's a pretty smaller city. It's about, I think at the time, there was 100, 110,000 people there. So I legit just took a 15-minute bike ride to get to my school or work, which was on campus. So I would just bike there, bike back, and on the way I'd stop at the grocery store and grab my stuff, put it in my backpack, and head home. So it wasn't hard for me to stay active.
I think Grand Junction too is a smaller city that's designed to be able to
Oh, I love Grand Junction because you could literally bike anywhere and get whatever you need.
Yeah.
I do love that.
Yeah.
And especially if you live like Main Street downtown. There's everything you possibly need there.
Right.
Right? Especially bagels. I like bagels. So I enjoy bagels there. And it's a very active community because literally hikes are 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
And biking or car ride. So it's really easy to be active when you're in those kind of environments. Absolutely. Maybe that's why I'm so excited to be on my boat. Because it's like I'm no longer really distracted by just being like in my house. It's like literally the water is right there.
Yeah.
Go swim.
Do you like swimming? Are you a swimmer?
I like swimming. I'm not a fast swimmer, mostly because I have a lot of drag. As I say. Always have had that, especially in the upper region. It's so funny because my friend Alex, I remember in college, they created this huge swimming pool on campus, and it was, instead of going from chlorine, it was salt water. But it was like light salt water. Yeah. It was like super nice for me, who can't be in a room with a bunch of chlorine in the air. Like I suffocate. Yeah. And so it was really nice, and it was Olympic sized. So she had done swimming quite a bit before me, and I'm like a decent athletic swimmer at that time. And so I was like, okay, let's go swim. She's just like booming down the lane, and I'm just like, ow. And so she's like, well, let me watch you swim and see what's wrong. And I'm doing everything just fine.
Your form is perfect.
It does not matter. She's like, I think you just have a lot of drag and it's not going to work because, you know, those lifeguard bricks? And she's like holding it to her chest, and we're literally the same weight on the scale. I'm not kidding you. Maybe like a pound or two off. Okay. But she, like the same weight on the scale. She holds the brick to her chest, and she legit just goes to the bottom of the pool. Okay, like slowly. Yeah. I hold on to it. I bob. I just stay on the surface. Aww. I will not go down. So it's just like, I like to say I can float very well. I do not have to be concerned.
That's funny. I am the opposite. I think.
Yeah.
Like, I took a scuba diving class, and our final was we had to just float in the deep end for like half an hour.
Easy peasy.
And everyone was they were just throwing balls around and just hanging. And I'm like.
Treading water like crazy.
Like panting. And they're like, no, David, it's just technique. You just have to. I'm like, I just don't. I just sink. It was so hard.
That is funny.
But made it.
Yeah, when people are like, you have to tread water for 15 minutes, I'm like, I don't even have to tread. Like, I'd be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just not a good swimmer at all.
Do you get really cold when you're in water?
I don't notice if I get really cold or not. I don't swim much. So
yeah, I don't get very cold in water. But that could just be like body fat percentage. I don't know. Yeah. I'm meant to be in the ocean. That's just all it is. I float very well, and I don't get cold super easy.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So this is me in my imaginary world of owning a business, where it's like, I actually do better when I do at-home workouts or class workouts at the gym. Okay. So I have to be with people, and then I will do very well. There's like a competitive factor with that from what I understand. But at home, I just like to do things that I like to do and have fun with it.
Okay.
And so I do a lot of like kettlebell workouts and sandbag workouts. And recently I've been having fun with the virtual reality.
Yeah.
So that's been a blast.
I was
And my traps, my
Mhm.
traps are like beefy
Yeah.
for a lady.
So that's the other thing I was gonna say is the more recreational things that are physical, that are
Mm.
enjoyable. I think that's another way to add movement into life.
It's also hard to stay committed to it, right? And I think this is really just that discipline factor, right?
Mhm.
Because like the volleyball team or the bike racing or whatever, there's
Yeah.
still a dedication factor.
There is. But that's like why I very intentionally got the virtual reality
Hmm.
in 2020 because I couldn't actually run because I had a foot injury all year. And so I was like, I need to do something. And I want to do something fun that kind of I get rewarded to move.
Mm,
And having this full body VR experience was that thing for me.
right.
Um, and so back when I was doing like parkour or acro yoga, it was very community based. So like with acro, you have your partner, you go there, it's super fun.
Hmm.
You can do it on your own though because the going to the classes, the community there is just awesome. Um, but again, that's an investment. I was investing in it, so I had to go.
Right.
And I liked the people there, so it was fun. Same with parkour. Um, but you're right. If you do have kids, you do have a partner, you are trying to run a business and probably have a job at the same time, adding on another social activity that is physical makes it much more difficult.
Just seems like it's less priority, right?
Yeah.
But Richard Branson,
Mhm.
Russell Brunson and Richard Branson, I swears it's really hard to like get those names right. Okay, so Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Group,
Mhm.
like Virgin Mobile, Virgin Airlines, it was interesting because he had an interview with Tim Ferriss, or Tim Ferriss went to his island, whatever.
Okay.
Tim Ferriss asked him the question. He said, "What's the number one thing that people need to do in order to have success, especially business owners?" And Richard Branson like sits there on his little cabana. He just sits there for a long time.
Sir Richard Branson.
Sir Richard Branson,
Yeah.
sitting there contemplating the answer to this awesome question
Mhm.
for a good while. And he comes up with the answer of working out.
Mhm.
Legit. Like, he's just like, working out. So, by deduction, it should be the priority if it leads to all of the benefits we're looking for.
Mhm.
Yet it is the least on our priority list.
Mhm.
But why?
Working out is hard. Like it's painful. It's uncomfortable. It's when you, especially a first workout after not working out, it's painful to do it and then it's painful after it.
Mm,
So running towards pain is kind of the opposite of what we're naturally conditioned to do.
mm.
Even though it's good for us, we don't want to do it because it hurts.
This actually makes a little sense because, like, the elevator option,
Hmm.
right? So, walking up the stairs would increase your health, all those things. But pressing the button, so easy.
It is much easier just press it and wait.
I just get bored waiting, honestly. That's why I take stairs.
Same.
I'm just like, unless it's there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But this actually makes sense. There's a book out there. I will put it in the description below because I'm going to forget the name. It's based off of two economics.
Two economic economics is economy.
Economists. Economists?
Economists. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, so
I didn't know what you were trying to say.
So
Economists.
yes, this book is written by two economists. So hard to say, who are Nobel Peace Prize winners and such, and one comes from the slums of India, and one comes from middle class France, and so they have like totally different perspectives. But they both became Pulitzer Prize winners because, man, there's a lot of hard words in all this like explaining I'm doing. So Pulitzer Prize winners because they did a mass study basically around the world with all sorts of numbers that really showed that even people who have poverty, if they are given an increased quality of life, they will take it even if it's detrimental to their health, such as places around the world, really. But in this case, it was Indonesia.
Okay.
And these are people that basically are working their hands and feet to the bone, labor work, and just to get rice for the day or for the week for their family.
Okay.
And they're slaving away just for that. If they had a choice to go for the rice that is super nutritious, they will not choose that over the sugar candy every time.
So they will choose the sugar candy over the rice?
Correct.
Okay.
When the rice gives them health and longevity, but the sugar is a quick fix.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's interesting how humans, we choose to have a lower end game of quality of life for a quick fix to feel like we're in an easier, luxurious mode.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, because again, working out gives you that same dopamine release. So they're going for the sugar because much like heroin, they did the rat study too.
Right.
Like the rats would eat the heroin instead of their own food and then they would just die.
Right. So yummy, this heroin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But unhealthy food does the same thing. So that sugar burst gives you that dopamine release really quick and fast.
Right.
Even though the rice gives you a better quality of life.
But the same concept with the elevator.
Yeah.
It's going, if there's stairs or the elevator, human nature actually says, I'm going to press the elevator button.
It's less painful.
Or it's less work or energy.
Work. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of survival tactic in a way.
But what's neat though is that exercise gives you a huge dopamine release.
And energy.
And everything.
So interesting.
But for me, like that's why I quit drinking, because alcohol gives me that same feeling. And it's so much easier than going to run a couple miles.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why I opted out of drinking this year, so that I can really focus on better, more healthier ways to get that same fix.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So as business owners, what do we do? Like what is the answer here to having balance with health and business and all the other things?
What works for me, and it's kind of my takeaway for this episode for the day, is that really, number one, having a goal, an end thing that you're working towards, and works for me. So something that I'm working towards gives me the motivation to get the workout in. So whether I'm trying to do a Tough Mudder, if I want to just like cross off running 26 miles, or running 1 mile, or being able to touch my toes from stretching, right? Yeah. Actually, one of my goals was to do a full downward dog with my heels on the ground.
Nice.
And that I still don't think I've ever actually gotten it. I get really close and I'm pretty flexible, but I can't do the whole heels down. But every time I'm doing some sort of yoga, that's like in my mind. And then I get closer and closer each time. Or whether it's to, you can get like a watch, one of the Fit watches, and say, hey, I want to get so many steps in this week or this day. And then it's a constant reminder of how far you have or haven't gone. I
saw someone, they had one of those, it was a battery operated machine that just did a swing kind of motion. Okay. I forget what it's called, but it's not like a pendulum or anything, but they put their smartwatch on it because they weren't quite up for their steps. They needed like an extra 200 steps and they were tired, so they just put it on the pendulum just to see the number pop up.
I mean,
or attach it to their dog, or like give it to their kid. And you're like, run around the house for a second.
I'll say it's not the worst, because you're still watching the thing and you're still tracking it. Definitely cheating, but they're still paying attention.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
being aware, I guess, it's a good thing about it.
What about yourself? Spouse, children, job, part-time business. How do we mix movement into that?
Well, you know how that quote is, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I agree to that to an extent.
Okay.
How you do anything, how you do anything that you care about is how you'll do everything that you care about.
Okay.
And because I could care less about making my bed. Okay. And yet I rock it in other areas of my life. Okay. So I'm like, but
little pent up aggression towards the whole
make a bed thing. I'm like, fine, but okay. I'm very much in like the Einstein mindset of just wear all brown so that you can think about other things.
Yeah, actually.
That's exactly the bed thing. Why do I need to have consciousness to make the bed when I can think about other things? Yeah, so just that's where I'm at. Anyway, so again, it's about how you do anything is how you do everything that you care about. In that, if you really want to stop being the automated press the elevator button, right? Because it's easy, because etc. Really taking into effect that working out today is going to be hard. That's because I chose to take the stairs rather than press the button. And if that follows you throughout the entire day, then I would believe that at the end of the day, you would become more successful at whatever it is you're trying to achieve, because you're not doing the cop out of, oh, just press the elevator button. Okay.
Can you rephrase that whole thing?
That didn't make any sense. Okay. I guess my takeaway would be, I think I'm having such a hard time with this because it's such a thing that I'm trying to deal with as well.
Okay.
If you truly care about your business, your family, and all those things, it's, again, one of those, you got to take care of you first.
Yeah.
And as a recovering caretaker, I think I'll always be in recovery. Taking care of yourself first is absolutely more important than taking care of everybody else. Because if you're running empty, you can't take care of everybody else. Right. I have done that. I've been there. And I think this last year I've been trying to figure out how to take care of myself in order for me to show up the best way possible for whomever I'm supposed to be helping in this world or serve this world. So if health, nutrition, working out is of low priority, like in my life, then so is your service to the world. Okay. If you really think about it. So I myself need to change my mindset. Maybe whoever's listening does as well. And I'm sure that's like 50% of the American population is, if you want to serve greatly, you do have to take care of yourself first. And putting in the dedication of self-care through health and movement is key.
But you have been moving more.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to Oculus.
Yes. I haven't, well, not lately because I've been sick. But,
I mean, like the last couple days.
No, I have been moving more because I'm finding more play in it. Before it was like a chore.
Playing the Oculus was?
Yeah, just movement in general seemed to feel like a chore because I wasn't connecting it to my service to the world. Yeah. I was connecting it to, oh, you got to do this because people say so, and you got to be attractive and sexy or whatever. And that was always kind of like the hidden talk.
Right.
Right. And so, but shifting it and having more play with it, I feel like can be a good start.
Absolutely. Yeah. So movement, that is fun. Prioritize it. And when you're having fun, know that it's actually bettering the people in your life because you're taking care of yourself first so you can better other people in your life. Or show up for other people in your life.
I'm like twitching over here. I don't like it.
I'm trying to recap what you were saying just to make sure
I think you got it. I think people got it, right?
Yeah,
right?
They got it. You got
right?
it. You got it, right? You got it. They're nodding their head, yes.
Okay.
They said they got it.
You're my favorite person.
She says snarkily.
Well, that, I feel, ends the episode of I Don't Know What the Fuck I'm Doing podcast.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to almost episode 20. And follow us. Check out our links on our beacon.ai/IDKWTF and we have some surprises there for you.
Yep. Check it out. On there is our Patreon account where you can sign up and get prizes like travel to Mexico, which we are doing here soon.
Yeah, we are going to. So I think
we're going to be in Mexico when this releases, aren't we?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So cool. And then also the other thing we're doing as well, if you go to that beacons.ai, you can actually sign up to have a phone call with us. Yeah. A completely complimentary call. We actually just want to talk to you guys and give you guys a chance to talk to us.
Ask questions, hang out, brainstorm, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool thing. We're not going to try and sell you anything. We just want to get your feedback and see if there's anything else we can help you with.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you on the next episode.
And whoever you are my favorite person.